and welcome to episode 492 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, a place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. My name is Vince Hunt, and joining me as always is the creator of the comic series Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And Tony Esmond. What's your favourite musical?
Oh, Paint Your Wagon. I was having a conversation about this. I love Paint Your Wagon because it's about human trafficking.
Nice.
Mm.
Nice.
Wholesome.
And Eastwood sings in it, which is terrible.
Yeah.
I can only imagine that is awful.
You never see it on telly anymore. I think maybe it's the kidnapping the prostitute section that I don't approve of.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they stopped doing that in the Night Garden. I don't know why they. World gone mad. World gone mad. But welcome to the show, everyone.
Cancelled Sesame Street.
You can't cancel. You can't cancel. Sesame Street hasn't been cancelled, has it?
I don't think. I hope not. It was talk about doing it, wasn't there, a while?
Yeah, you can't cancel that. That's an institution now, isn't it?
Yeah, I love Sesame Street. Who's your favourite Muppet?
Now, are you talking Sesame Street characters? Are you talking
across all Muppets? So all the Muppet Nation.
Okay, the Muppet Nation.
Cookie Monster, obviously.
You think he's
Cookie Monster?
I love Cookie Monster. Yeah, Cookie Monster's great. What's the geezer in the bin?
Oh, Oscar the Grouch. He's my favourite.
Yeah,
he's the
he's
one.
good.
I felt as I got older, he's the one that I felt more connection to because I think I am him, and not just because I live in a bin.
I like Mr. Snuffleupagus for similar reasons.
Oh,
nobody can
your
see
hair.
him apart from Big Bird. Yeah, like I wander around feeling like Mr. Snuffleupagus sometimes.
But there's the little Snuffleupagus as well, isn't there?
Has he got a little with him? Is he?
There's a little one, isn't there?
Oh,
Snuffleupagus is like the mammoth, isn't it?
He's a friend of Big Bird's.
There's a smaller one as well. I swear there's a smaller one, but I don't know.
Okay.
We're all a friend of Big Bird.
I've got no reason to doubt you in this matter.
I like the Count as well. I like him.
Yeah,
he's great. Yeah,
he's only one joke, and he really, but I like him.
Yeah, but if it's a good joke, it'll last forever.
Yeah,
it's kind of like the Fast Show. You do it once an episode.
Someone's sitting there, mate. That became a joke for fucking.
The one that whenever it was on, I was like, oh, not him again. I didn't really get. Who's the one with the sort of hook nose?
Gonzo.
Grover. No, Gonzo has the hook nose. I'm okay with Gonzo. Grover's the one in Sesame Street, isn't he? He's the blue one, isn't he?
He flies. He's a superhero sometimes.
Yeah, I didn't really get him.
I quite like him.
Yeah. But of course, we all know how to count to 12 because of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 seconds of your life that we've just wasted. Probably minutes of your life we've just wasted on this conversation.
There's a related joke. Donald Duck went up to Mickey Mouse and said, "You packed in Minnie Mouse this because she's got messy teeth, fucked up teeth." He goes, "No, I packed her in because she's fucking goofy."
Yeah.
Another classic joke from Dan there that falls apart because he didn't do the Donald Duck voice.
I saw that's something you got to be careful of. I saw won't name the artist, but I saw someone do a sketch of Moon Knight with the moon behind him, but the way he placed it made it look like he had Mickey Mouse ears. He was sort of sideways on. I couldn't get it out of my head. I kept looking at it thinking that's Mickey Mouse.
Once you see it.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it, which is quite appropriate.
Oh, yeah, apropos.
Because we had a chance to talk to the brilliant artist and comic creator J Webster Sharp this week. And that is a wonderful conversation that you're going to hear in a bit that will, people have certain opinions about this show, but, we also care about art and everything else about it. We talk about so many different things in that. And, Gemma's just a
good,
a creative force, I think, that I think over the next couple of years as well, more and more people are going to
that brutal honesty in her work is this kind of
I really like that. That's what I really like about it.
Yeah,
but she's taking that chance.
Yeah. And so something different to start off December. Yes, we are now in December. We're getting closer to Christmas and therefore the holidays and the holiday cheer on this show. God, it's a Sunday night, and
We've got to pick out our holiday book as well, haven't we? Our Christmas book.
Yes.
I've got a couple of alternatives for you. I found a few. I'll send you the alternatives later.
Yeah. So we have tailing off the end of the year. There'll be a couple of Three Amigos shows with the sort of best of and a bit of festive cheer to keep you company.
2 big guests coming though. Before the end of the year.
Last year we did Hitman. The year before that we did the X-Men with Kitty Pryde, and that was great. Both of them were great.
Yep. So lots of fun yet to come in the year, and who knows what it's going to be like next year. I'll tell you what it's going to be
Speaking
like.
of reading
Spoilers. It's
comics.
going to be fucking awesome, and there's going to be filled with comics, because that's what this show's all about. And if you like reading comics, then you should, well, where should they go, guys? To
Global Comics.
Global
Comics. Wow, I've heard that was going to sound really cheesy. I'm just going to read from the script. I was about to say that aren't they the place to go for digital comics?
Yeah,
they are, and they sponsor this show because they're a really good. They're a force for good in the comics world right now, and we're very pleased to be partnered with them. There's a huge library of titles available on Global Comics. Thousands of indie creators. Some we know, some we don't know, some that you might hear in the future on the show, or you probably will hear, because we'll put the feelers out. And there's hundreds of publishers like Image, Boom, Tokyo Pop, TK Studios, SourcePoint Press, Mad Cave Comics, Humanoids, Dynamite. Why do I put Humanoids and Dynamite next to each other? There are two difficult words to say next to each other. Dark Horse and a little outfit called DC are on there as well, and the catalogue is growing all the time. I love seeing what is being added all the time and checking stuff out. Chaps, what have you noticed on the
funny
highlight
you
reel?
mentioned Humanoids. I was going to recommend a book from there. So, 1,000 Faces from Philippe Thibault, Mark Maylez, and Mario Gianni, and it's got covers by Paul Pope. And it's kind of a Western horror survival story, really savage, quite strange, but it's that Humanoids twist. So there is a mystic quality to it. It's not a hit on the nose on the head, but it's it's beautifully done. It's really good. So have a look at that. It's a series of albums. So I think it's 3 on there.
Speaking of Humanoids, before Dan reads off his, there is a book on there that I haven't read, but I know, I believe it's Humanoids. Apologies if I get this wrong, but the Incal is on there.
That's on there,
and I've never read it. Now,
read the original. Don't read the recoloured.
Yeah, as the comics reader that I have become, do you think I will be into it? Will I be?
You'll either really enjoy it, or you'll become massively frustrated by parts of it being slightly nonsensical.
Yeah,
that's the wrong thing to say.
Yeah.
But it's
I find myself having a short
time.
attention span for some comics. It's almost like I'm not in the mood for some comics. Do you know what I mean? When you read them,
totally. Yeah.
You just got to get in the space of the creators for that one.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure we've all had it when you started a comic and you read a couple of pages like this just ain't going in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll try again later.
Sometimes they're certainly too wordy, especially for some stories. It slows down the pace, doesn't it?
I think the thing for the Inkle, you probably build it up because it's up there, isn't it?
I've heard so many people talk about it.
Just go into it as this experience of, if you think of it as with the period it was made and its strangeness, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dan, what have you noticed this week?
Mine's not so much of a title, but an offer that Global Comics is currently running. The Black Friday and Cyber Week deal. Getting 50% off your annual subscription and gift subs, so you can get a year for $45, $44.99.
That is
okay.
That is
crazy insane for a year's worth of reading on this app. I can't recommend it more.
All the apps, that's the cheapest of the lot, to be fair, I think. But Marvel, we're talking back on the Slack the other day. Marvel and DC, I don't know, it's such a good deal if you're a big comics reader.
Yeah.
The comics I read in a morning pay for the app for that month easily.
Yeah. If you genuinely, if you like reading comics, like stuff like this is the way to go. And Global Comics, you know, I mean, they've sponsored the show for a little while now, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger. And even just the catalog alone, never mind the company themselves, but the catalog alone has grown so much that if you jump in now, you won't stop reading comics for months. And we're not. It's like you'll find some ones that you won't like, you find some ones that are okay, and you find some ones that probably will become your favourites because there's so much on there. If you just want to,
I think the thing is, we've got that dead space between Christmas and New Year coming up, and we the most boring period
I'm
of the year.
going to read so much, and I'm going to do it with Global Comics because you can set reading status filters, you can follow creators, so or publishers. So if anything new comes out, or if there's any news, then that pops up. It's that time of the week. The man with the most notifications in the world, Dan Butcher. How many Tony? We've got a guess. How many notifications do you have this week? I'm going to say
52.
Oh, you're saying 52. I'm going to go conservative. I reckon 36 right now.
63.
Oh,
30, yeah. 11 out.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
11 out.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So
I'm also getting notifications because people are adding my titles to their read list.
Oh, nice.
Oh, amazing.
Edifying.
Which is brilliant. And also, if you're creative yourself like Dan, you can publish your digital comics for free. There's loads of great tools for creators to help with publishing, marketing, and more. It's all about comics for the people, made by people. So whether you're an avid comics reader, creator, or someone new to the hobby, definitely check out Global Comics. Go to Global Comics, that's comics with an X.com, and you can download the app now on the Apple App Store or Google Play, and it is really easy to use, this app as well. And you can start reading comics like never before. And
so much quality of life changes they put on there as well. It's like they introduce a new kind of feature on it. It's like, oh man, that's great.
Yeah,
they changed everything with the reading
constant,
lists.
isn't it?
Yeah. It was like, oh man, it's so much easier.
Yeah, they're actually sort of, rather than just being a big sort of company just going, we're going to create this and people put it out and that's it, like it or lump it. They're very much, they're comics fans. They've got to be comics fans and they listen to the community there as well. So definitely check them out. Thank you to them for sponsoring the show as always. One of our most professional ones there, I think.
I think so.
That was a good one.
That was very good. Yeah, we're very sensible and grown up when we want to be. Unlike the sign off for last week, which
no, the people like the sign off. I got sent that through as an audio clip.
We had to tell people about the intro. We'd done the two intros. Didn't we?
Oh yeah, because Don was a bit late, wasn't he? Yeah.
So,
thanks for all the comments about last week. Actually, everyone seems to like Don. That's nice.
Yeah. And if you want great guest content, then let's look no further. There's loads of comics to recommend and stuff in the shout-outs in a moment, but right now, let's hear from J Webster Sharp. Right, this week we are very pleased to be joined by the creator, I would say up and coming, but been making quite a few waves across the comic book medium, and certainly on our radar because Tony talked in depth about one of her books. But she's also created books like Pretty Flavor, Tokai Mura, I want to make sure I said 99, I want to make sure I said that right, A Scrapbook of Life and Death, and the anthology series Fondant. It's our pleasure to welcome the one and only J Webster Sharp to the show. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Our
pleasure. Yeah.
Are we to call you Jay or Gemma? What's going to be?
You
What do you
can
prefer?
call me Gemma. It's
Okay.
a name I'm particularly keen on, but it's my name. So, yeah.
Did you not think of picking like a writer's pseudonym, pen name?
Well, the J Webster Sharp was the best I could do. It's my initial. It's also my maiden name, and then the name I had with my first marriage. But now I'm married again, so my surname is actually Fraser.
Ah, that's not good. Okay.
But it's quite I mean, without knowing any of the work, just a name sometimes, like J Webster Sharp, that immediately, if I just hear that name by itself, it feels like there's more substance to what I'm about to read. Rather than like Charlie Gibbon. Do you know what I mean? If it's someone like that, it's like, oh, he probably does a silly book, but
Brian Warner.
Brian Warner.
Dan Butcher.
Don't be silly. That's a terrible name.
Boney Desmond.
Yeah. But certainly, we've wanted to talk to you for a while, and anyone. There is, I mean, comics are a very visual medium, and storytelling, and we'll be getting into all avenues of storytelling and art because yours is a fascinating way to look at it. But your work is truly one of the best examples of. It's like the Matrix. You have to see it for yourself because it's. Because you use, is it pointillism? Is that?
Yes. And some people say pointillism. This one guy said, "Oh no, that's for painting. It's stippling if you use a pen."
Oh yeah.
I say pointillism. I say stippling. But yeah, just with the very end of my Mitsubishi Unipin fine line pens, just the very end of those, dotting away.
Immediately, we got some pen talk. I like that. Immediately,
no, we do like pen talk. Yeah. You don't make life easier for yourself because I can't imagine that's the quickest of styles either.
No, it isn't. And I just kind of fell into it when I first did my very first comics years ago, just because at the time I wasn't really aware of people like Virgil Finlay or anyone else that seemed to do it. And I kind of thought, well, I've not seen anyone else do it, so it might be interesting to do and catch people's attention. And it kind of did, and it was kind of nice to discover that other artists have also used it in the kind of kind of horror vacui kind of way of drawing.
You were you influenced by people to follow that sort of route? Because I know you started off being a portrait artist. Am I right in saying that was it in oils or?
Oils, acrylic. I did fine art painting at university, and I tried to be a portrait painter.
Right.
And I've always been kind of, had that interest growing up in like morbid culture and dark things. And I was definitely into true crime before that was like a more regular thing that kind of existed for people to be into, things like that. And I'd always taken bits and pieces of things that kind of spoke to me out of their dark nature, and I would take that and use it in paintings. And I'd also, when I painted, I'd do a lot of collage work, and like kind of make a collage and paint from that. And then it would change in its own way because I'd use paints, and it would be a copy but not a copy. And then I get interested in people like William Burroughs and his friend Brian Geisen, who did the cut-ups, making his books of cut-up literature, Naked Lunch, and getting into his interest in kind of the layering up of time, how you can change aspects of time by taking something that exists in one form, cutting it up, mixing it with other things it didn't belong with to kind of create a visual disruption.
Interesting.
And I kind of thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, very much so. I mean, I think you represent someone we rarely have on here whose influences in the comics they make seem to come from places elsewhere than comics. Is that fair to say?
It is fair to say, because the things I've been interested in haven't just been comics, haven't just been fine art. It came from all over. And I've always been, I was absolutely obsessed with Andy Warhol from about the age of about 13 until about 17. And once I get interested in somebody, I need to find out everything about them and see everything they've done or read everything that they've written before I can comfortably move on. Which sounds really obsessive and strange.
No, you're in the world of obsessives.
That.
Yeah. We're comic readers. We are massively obsessive about everything. That's the thing. And in parallel to Warhol, and I think it was Diane Arbus. I think I've heard you mention the New York photographer. That was a big inspiration, was it? Or
oh yeah, very. She was making photographs of people and of things that not, of course, had been photographed before, but hadn't been. She would involve herself with her subjects. She'd know them for years before she considered that she'd taken the photograph that kind of she was after all the time. And she put herself in very dangerous, precarious situations in the New York underworld in order to get these images.
That's interesting, isn't it? To know someone to then take their picture as opposed to know someone through their photograph, I guess.
Yeah.
Is an interesting position.
And her life was amazing. She grew up very wealthy and very she kind of got stuck. Her husband was Alan Arbus, who went on to play the psychiatrist in the TV series MASH.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Curb Your Enthusiasm as Larry David's uncle in the first season.
I know, yeah.
And they were fashion photographers for Vogue and Vanity Fair and Mademoiselle, and that's what she spent like the first 10, 15 years of her career doing before she branched out on her own to become, I guess, a kind of street photographer.
I mean, does that fall into what you're trying to do? You're trying to capture a moment, do you think?
I've always been interested in people's lives. I love reading biographies. I don't know whether I did that in order to find out something about myself through doing that. It could have been an answer to something. I know I liked Andy Warhol because he had really bad skin when he was young. And I had really bad skin when I was young. And if I if ever I've kind of been obsessed over the particular work or processes or life of someone that I've looked into, it's because I've seen something about them that makes me think of about myself, really. It's hard to explain. Yeah,
I think I've heard you say before, the secret lives of humans is what has always interested me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could have just said that. I could have. I didn't.
But it's the secret part of it that interests me. So the sort of hidden. We'll move on to your comics in a second, but that interest in the transgressive.
Yeah. Like the book I've just done, the Scrapbook of Life and Death, Avery Hill. It was so nice of them to let me do that.
I think they were very pleased with it, as I understand it. Yeah.
The fellow George Ives he was born in the late 1800s, maybe mid to late 1800s, and he was gay, and I kind of looked at the newspaper clippings he collected his whole life as a kind of, windows into other people's lives, because that were different, not of the norm, and maybe because his identity had to be so secret, he had to keep his life secret, that if he collected, these people's existences within these pages of scrapbooks, that he would have a kind of, I know it must have spoken to him in some way to do that. To collect these fragments of people's lives that were out there in public in newspapers, when his own was so, had to be kept quiet because it was illegal,
And maybe that's a parallel to the rest of society at the time, because Victorian and the Edwardian world, like the freak show was their EastEnders, wasn't it? They were obsessed with, we've seen it all with the Elephant Man and the Greatest Showman and all this sort of thing. Is they were obsessed with it, and there was that parallel to looking at that compared to all the secrets that those societies used to hold back.
I think it's not just like then as well. Like there's a certain, although it's there's a certain truth to whether it be printed work or artwork and things like that. Like even to the modern day, because everything is on a screen now. It feels like everyone's lives are on a phone, or but it's just the lives that people are choosing to show.
Yes.
So
the real inside
there's a lot more truth in what people are doing in art a lot of the time, isn't it? Because they can express something that they don't always want to put on a, you don't want to put on a phone, but art, it's why it's, I think it's so
did
powerful.
It, guys. We did it with Hidden Lives. We talked about, the lives that are not spoken about, the world that people don't talk about and stuff. And sure, you can see most things on the internet, but the true people, it's all a bit fake now, isn't it? We've all grown into this sort of fakeness. Anyway, let's talk about how you got into comics. So why the change to get into comics, Jem?
It was just kind of a natural progression of just being interested in art. And of course, I read graphic novels, Dan Clowes, like everyone else growing up. And always that kind of, I could have a go at this. I could see. Because as much as I was a painter, I did draw. And I don't even, it was so many years ago. It was like back in 2009. I can't even remember how I found out about Thought Bubble Comic Convention. That at the time in Leeds, it was at the Royal Armouries in the horrifyingly named Savile Hall. I don't even remember how I found out about that.
You're from that way, though, aren't you? You're Yorkshire, aren't you?
I'm from Derbyshire.
Oh, okay. Pardon me. Sorry.
I've lived in Yorkshire over half of my life.
Okay.
Yeah. Because after I went to university, I just stayed up here.
Right.
There was a fellow called Dr. Jeff who lived around the corner from me in Leeds. And I think I saw him at some kind of local art market kind of fair thing. And I saw that he did his own small press. And he did something called Fetish Man and Lactose Intolerance Boy.
Oh, this rings a bell. Yeah, I think I've read them. Yeah.
I I just asked because I didn't know how you made a comic. I didn't know what you did, and I asked him about it, and it really was like, oh well, you just go to a printer and get some. It was so simple that it didn't even. I had no idea how simple it was that you could just do it. Staple some pages together. I thought there was just some big mystery behind it, or it was more complicated, or something. I have no idea how I thought people did it, but I thought there'd be more to it than that. So I just had a go. And it made sense to me. And I'd gone from doing these massive paintings where, in a funny way, I look back on now that I'd like paintings I'd painted from collages that I'd made. And I was trying to say something, even though I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And then I, reduced the size down to an A3 sheet of paper. And I kind of, to me, did the same thing I did with the paintings, only I drew it. And it kind of worked. And I enjoyed using a smaller space and more detail and one color. And it felt like the right thing to do.
What's the difference in visual language though? Like, because like you've got one painting, and usually it's whatever people, there's so many stories or like people, the meanings to things. But when you take that into a comic or a book, and you've got several pages, it's not just one painting that's doing all of that. You can be crafting a tale or a thought process or whatever it may be. Did you find, like, over the more books that you've made, there is a change in the visual language that you've been using? Is like, the pacing and the tempo and the way that your art is spread out over 24 pages instead of one giant canvas?
I mean, use of words is a big thing as well for you, isn't it? It's not often that you have words in your comics as well as part of that question.
I try not to use words. Yeah, I found that over time, if I look back at Fondant 1 and look at Fondant 4, I look at issue 1, I think, oh my God, there's so much white space. Why didn't I do the background there, and why didn't I fill it in here? And it kind of horrifies me that now I'm filling the space as much as I can with everything I can think of. And I almost wish I could go back to those first issues and fill up the spaces that I've left.
Why does the negative space concern you in that regard? It being empty?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Why does the negative space being empty? Why does that concern you? Like, what? Surely, if you kind of got content and not content,
it just disturbs me, that kind of blankness. I don't want the blankness.
Okay.
I love the fact that that's what disturbs you. It's the nothingness. It's
because I have trouble not thinking. I'm always thinking all the time. And I found that the times in my life that haven't been great is when I've had nothing in my head to keep myself occupied.
Okay.
Distraction,
so I need that imagery in my brain. I always need to be busy. I can't just sit and do something. I always have to draw, or I've always got to be occupied in some way.
So like, and the sort of work that you do, which is so in depth, and there's so much going. I mean, choosing to use like a pointillism style is already like respect. I can't imagine.
Massive.
Let's call it torture.
Yes. But there's so much going on. So that must be a learning that that I'm not just creating these books, but it's of a help, isn't it, by doing this sort of work?
Yeah. And I there's been a couple of times this year that I haven't been able to draw because I've had to go away for a few days and things, and just itching to get back to it, and also the fear that I'm going to somehow lose my ability to do this.
I think that's quite common, isn't it? I think
how to do it or something, which isn't true at all. That never
No.
happens. I mean, when I haven't drawn for a while, my hand and my wrist really hurt, but then that kind of goes away after a few days.
How do you because for people that haven't seen your stuff, there's much of it is indescribable. You have to see it to,
Yes.
It's very transgressive, isn't it? How do you tap into that, Gemma? How do you think, right, today I'm going to draw a girl that's joined to a dog, and
Why did I choose to take a drink at that point?
That was the most. That's the only one I could think of saying out loud at the moment. But yeah.
I'm going to give you the most infuriating answer in the whole world, which is not that I don't know, but I have to do it quick. If I have an idea for a story, or even the George Ives clippings where I had in the book that I found with all the clippings in, like the story of the spider, the guy who got the Black Widow through the post from California to kill himself in a really creative way. And okay, so you read this article a few times, gives you the basics, and my little brain says it's almost like being seduced and eaten alive by a woman who comes through the post. That's what came to my head. And I don't think about things, because if I were to sit and think with that and make notes about it and think about it some more, the final idea wouldn't be as good as the initial first fresh idea that was completely untainted and unplayed with. If I get the first thing down and that's what it is, that's the most interesting, because if I edit it in any way, it's not this pure certain thought that I had originally that was fresh and instant. It's something that's been played with. And I might have also thought about something, I saw that before, or
Gotcha. I think that's also because, like, you deal with like dark imagery and nightmarish and horror sort of themes and things like that. I think overthinking can be the death of so many ideas that are like horrifying. Do you know what I mean? And
it's like visual,
because
visual
we're trying,
medium.
especially when you're dealing with stuff that doesn't quite make sense, and like people maybe have like a nightmare or a dreamscape. As soon as you try and add logic to it, the whole thing falls apart.
Breaks down.
Yeah.
But have you ever gone back and analysed some of the themes? Because I mean, there are things that recur. Feeding and teeth, for example, is a big one, isn't it? There's a lot of teeth in your books.
Oh, teeth are just
yeah. I was looking at the one which is a woman who had teeth for nipples, for example. I mean, a psychologist could write a couple of theses on just one of your comics, couldn't they?
I'm so scared of the dentist. No, I really am so scared of the dentist, and it sounds terrible. One of my first memories was I think I had some loose teeth, and my dad had to get up early to go to work the next day, and it was nighttime, and he was tired, and I was crying, and I have this memory. It sounds awful. He like grabbed the hair at the back of my head and got the toothbrush and just started ramming it around inside my mouth. There's things that I draw. Yeah, that was awful. I'm so sorry. There's things that I draw that have its home like within me from somewhere. It isn't all just, kind of. To me, it makes sense, the links of the things.
But those sort of things as well. The word visceral is a good word for it, because it immediately provokes a reaction. And like certain things, like teeth are definitely, as soon as you say something like that, that will put some people on edge, because there are many people who don't like the dentist as well. Anything like just that sort of, oh God.
I imagine people who like the dentist are probably worse than people who hate the dentist. I'll be honest with you. But you've really embraced it, Gemma, as almost like a stylistic signature, this transgressiveness. I would say you're probably known for it now. How do you feel about that?
I'm absolutely fine with that, because I don't think I could draw in any other way. I don't think I could do anything straight and friendly and have. I think I'm quite happy doing this as well. I don't think I'd feel confident drawing in any other way.
I think that's an honesty to your style of work as well. Do you know what I mean? Like you have these artists that they create these works, and they get a name and they get bigger, and a publisher just sort of says, "We'd like you to do a book for us."
We want you to do Batman.
And
that's the old.
Those
that's
artists,
the old
like, you know what you're going to get, don't you? Because some publishers just want someone because they're just the hotness.
Yeah.
So, like with you, someone comes to you, they've got to want that book.
Mate, I would pay good money to see you do a Care Bears comic. That would.
One of them's got teeth on their chest.
Yeah. One of them's turned inside out.
Yeah, I'd draw that. If someone paid me, I'd draw that.
How long does it take? This is such an open-ended question because your pages. Because I love to talk about the art and get into the process and stuff. And love all of that. And it can vary based on page to page. But do you work on one page at a time? Let's start with this question. Or do you have several different? Or is it always?
No, just one. I just start on the one, and I finish that one before I start another one.
Okay.
Do you thumbnail out the whole issue? You know where it's going, or is it more instinctual than that?
The only thing I can show you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm working on a new book.
Oh, okay. So you've kind of got what's going to happen on each page, yeah.
Yeah.
Just so that. Mostly it's because I always forget about the inside, front, and back covers.
So you've got like a skeleton sort of template.
It's like a flat plan.
Yeah, flat plan of like the book.
What the book's going to be.
Which is to all creators out there, that's a good thing to have, so you know what the pacing and how things are going to.
Especially where the two pages run together, I think is always a great idea. Yeah.
So I've done that for the book that I'm working on now that I've just started, and I did that for the scrapbook of life and death, but I don't do that for Fondant or any of the other things I do.
Okay.
Mostly I only did them for those two books because it felt like the proper thing to do, and I didn't want to mess it up in any way because it was a proper thing. But I don't doodle and I don't keep sketchbooks.
Right,
it's
interesting.
Like I can't draw for pleasure. Like I enjoy doing it. I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it, but I can't because if I were to think of ideas for a page, like I said before, there'd be no point in doing it because I would have already drawn it in the sketchbook, and then to draw it again might not be as good, and
kind of like wasted time and energy. If you're going to draw it, why not just do the whole thing?
I might have lost interest in the idea.
Yeah.
How does that affect like the narrative pacing of like because if you just say you got a 6-page story for want of a better term, and you're working on one page at a time, do you have a clear idea of even if you don't have sketches or doodles or anything like that? Do you have a clear idea of where it's going, or does that if something different happens on that page you're working on, could that affect what's coming next?
No, weirdly it works. Weirdly. Even if it's a short thing I'm doing for an anthology, like 4 pages or 6 pages, I can think of it all at once in that block. Whereas for like something about 24 pages of Fondant, that's like a page at a time. But if it's short, I can think of the whole thing in one go.
I mean there's a lot of power in that and I say that because your pages are so detailed, and I imagine are quite work intensive for one page, so
it can take about 3 days.
Okay, still quite quick.
And as an artist, and I'm sure there's lots of artists out there that even though they're working on a page, their brain they're thinking about lots of other things at every time. So I mean, I could be working on a page, by the end of a page, unless I've got an idea of where this is, I've written down notes, I could be lost. Do you know what I mean? Especially when you get so in the weeds of the page itself.
Yeah.
So that's very impressive for the work you do to still have a lock, like a real lockdown on what it's doing. That's pretty amazing.
Thanks.
I guess artistic discipline, isn't it?
That's the way it's discipline. Yeah.
So I mean, Avery Hill aren't the first people to pick you up. Didn't you do something for Fantagraphics as well? Am I right in saying?
I did something for, where is it? I did something for their now number 12. I did ventriloquist dolls coming to life and attacking sex workers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That age-old story.
Yeah, that old chestnut.
How did you come to hook up with those guys?
Well, I think I saw some nows and I just sent an email saying, how do I get into this?
Okay.
And the email was forwarded and they said, oh, that's some nice work. Would you like to put something in? And I said yes. And I just happened to have this ventriloquist thing I've just either started or just done. And I was happy for them to have it.
Because I think it may have been even before that I heard Simon Hanselman talking about you on, was it the Gutter Boys podcast, I think? Which is the infamous one where he claims you're a hairdresser. We'd like to put that rumor to bed.
Yeah.
You have never been a hairdresser. We don't know why that was.
I owe a big part of my career to a core group of people who seem to have supported me from the very beginning.
Nice.
Simon being one of them. And that was like, there's me in my bedroom just doing this, and then finding out he's talked about you and shared your pages, and it's like, to say that really helps is an absolute understatement. I mean, yeah.
Have you ventured out to do any international cons? Or I know while TCAF was on, you and I were doing Bridlington Convention.
Yeah, it's just money. It's just I just can't afford to. If I could afford to, then I'd be all over it. Because I feel that the rate of cons in America, and just like the small press specialist ones, there's just so many more of them than there is over here.
Really envious of that.
Yeah.
Last week's guest saying that they had a couple of local ones. No, we had a drinking draw on Friday, and one of the chaps on it was saying that there was 2 in his local area that month.
And if you think about like America in itself, like every small press convention, there is a small press community coming together.
Yeah, because they're not all joined up like we are. Yeah, definitely.
I was going to ask, how do you source your when you go about collecting the stories like we used in the scrapbook? What sources would you go to kind of get these kind of tales about, like the one with the spider?
Well, everything from scrapbook came from a book I took from a pub back in about 2006, 2007. That was basically a book of photocopies of clippings this guy had collected, and then at the front was a biography of him and stuff. And I kept it because I thought, well, I'm bound to use this at some point in my life.
But hadn't you been collecting clippings at the same time? Is that right?
Yeah, I totally did that. And I was quite, I mean, obviously other people do, but yeah, it was odd. I mean, because I collected them at university, and I know that you can't.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, there's this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Suicides increase over the holidays.
Yeah.
Woman killed by too much water. Body in suitcase verdict. Scorpion in my bed.
These are clippings. They're not stories.
Yeah, not diaries. Yeah.
But saying that, they do sound like story titles as well, don't they? Even though they're like clippings.
Yeah.
It's the old story about John Wagner used to think of dread stories by looking at sea facts. It's almost a similar thing, isn't it? It's almost like you get inspiration from these sort of freakish headlines.
Yeah. I mentioned to Tony earlier, there used to be a website called Anna Nova, and every day they used to do like a really strange story, and it would literally like it's been ripped out of that scrapbook because they were just the most weirdest things. Like man fashioned wife's head into orange and ate it and stuff like that.
Well, we used to have the Sunday Sport, didn't we? We had literally, it said, was it like tube train found on the moon? Literally things like that every week. Yeah. It's
always more interesting.
Pretty Star ate my hamster.
Yeah. It's genuine. Do you know what I mean? Like actually it's someone's done it, and it's like the kind of that very eccentric, strange human behavior that you can never make that up. It's just so bizarre.
It's a surreal world. It is a surreal world we live in.
So that truth is stranger than fiction.
It's harder to surprise us, I'm going to say now. Do you think because we're so exposed to everything. When I was a kid, there was no internet and stuff like that.
I think also, talking about society now, but I think also society is numb to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, it's a shorthand, but, like, I'm a big horror movie fan. So I'm watching a lot of horror movies, and then when I see these people going, this is the scariest thing of the year, this is the goriest thing of the year, and I watch it, I'm like, it's not that bad. Because I'm used to a certain type of thing, and I need to remember, oh yeah, not everyone is numb to it like I am.
Yeah.
Same with social media. Like, you can turn on social media and see someone getting killed.
Yeah, literally getting someone's head chopped off now. Can't you?
While you're having your cornflakes. It's very strange reality.
I mean,
like some of my first treks into the internet, like rotten.com. I spent time on that, and I've no idea how I came across it or why. And I was really young.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
and that was infamous. That name.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
It's a bit like. Do you remember RateMyPoo.com? That was a good site.
Never.
You were top for months, weren't you, Tony?
Yeah, always. Top. It's like the X Factor. It's like that. Yeah. So that's a question I have for you, mate. Gemma, is where does all this happen? So where are your stories happening? Are they happening in the real world, or are they happening somewhere else? In your head, what you're putting on the page, do you see as being something that happens, or is it this sort of fantasy horror?
Well, they all exist within. I'm going to say there's a kind of Britishness about the way that I draw things, and you know what? I think that also kind of comes from those. Because I was in Waterstones the other day, and those Raymond Briggs books, the Father Christmas one, where he gets up to go to work and he's got like the 70s gas fire and there's a lot of exposed brickwork and stripy blue and white pajamas, and it kind of comes from. I weirdly kind of, when I draw clothes and things, there is a kind of 1970s, maybe 1980s kind of feel to them. They all take place kind of. Yeah, in this kind of.
I mean, is it your reality? Is it, you think?
It doesn't exist because it's too horrible and too disgusting, maybe.
Yeah, and too fantastic almost. Yeah. Then can I invite you to have a look at the work of Lord Horror? There's a character called Lord Horror from the 80s, and I haven't ever seen anything that looks as similar to you as that. I think when you get a second, I really do think there's a parallel there to be made, because you're living in that grotesquerie that he lived in. You're almost like are you looking to shock people?
No, I think if you set out to intentionally shock, I think you're just going to get it wrong and nobody will be shocked. And I don't. It's hard to say. I can't.
Are you looking to outrage? Maybe is that another word, or
They're kind of all the things that I draw kind of are like internal things to me, and are, I guess, kind of veiled explanations as to things that have happened to me, or explanations about myself, and I'm kind of, sounds ridiculous, and I'm kind of communicating them with people in the best way that I know how.
I've heard you say that. I've heard you say that it's you. You know, everything is you, and I think maybe that needs a little explanation, possibly. How is it? Is it a reflection of emotions, or is it Is it Francis Bacon says that art is one thing turned into another, doesn't he? So a mood can become an image of someone having their teeth removed, for example.
Yeah. I also like how he described how he came up with his paintings, as that they, what was it? They fall into place like slides, because no one ever knew how he painted. There's no footage of him painting, and he doesn't talk about his technique or anything.
I'm guessing he's an influence as well, is he?
Oh, I like him very much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
I'm sorry, I've completely.
That's all right.
There's so many different layers to your work.
Yeah,
just in general, it's sort of.
I was going to ask, as part of that, honestly, is do people confuse you with your work? So you've tabled now a lot. You've had to do signing. I know you did a little signing tour of the UK, didn't you, recently?
Yeah.
OK Comics and Travelling Man and stuff. Do people turn up? And I mean this with the most respect. You seem a very nice person. When I first read your comic, I didn't quite expect the person I met, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. But do people expect you to be? I don't even know what to think. Like, I don't know, some crazy goth person, with tattoos on your face or something,
I don't know what people expect. I hope I'm not a disappointment to them.
Has anyone said, you seem nice, I didn't expect to, something like that?
No, I've never been looked upon with. I've never seen disappointment in anybody's eyes yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. There is that weird contrastiness, I guess, in how I look and what the work looks like.
You must get asked quite a few interesting questions at those sort of signings for those that know your work, because it is such a sort of unique and different take to everything that people must. It invites thought and question, and and sometimes I think a work is very much you're presenting this, but the reader is taking their own.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. I think what you're saying is, I know you don't go out to shock, but I imagine that people may be shocked by it.
Or provoked. I think rather than shocked.
Yeah, provocation.
It's
almost disgust sometimes, because it's very raw, some of it,
Yeah.
In a good
which
way.
is only a compliment. Work should evoke an emotion.
Yeah.
I don't really, I don't really get questions when I table places, but I have people tell me how much they like the work.
That's good.
That happens a lot. And
that's what we want.
Yeah.
It's so, I'm still amazed that this is interesting to anyone. It's great that it is. It feels really lovely.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that people like it, even though it is.
You're very humbleness in small press is a rare commodity, my friend. Yeah.
I thought you would have kind of got bored with the people coming up to you going, "Oh, where do you get your ideas from?"
Or what does the question? What does this mean?
Yeah.
Because so much of art is, well, what do you think it means?
I think we live in a world where people draw conclusions that aren't there often as well. So, for example, I was just looking at the images of the woman with her mouth held open, and that could be numerous, both good and bad implications, decisions, whatever they think that may be.
And I think I really like making silent work, because I'm one of these people who reads the same books over and over,
right,
over and over. And I think that if like work that doesn't have any words, when I read like a book, when I read fiction, I'm not seeing the sentence or hearing a sentence in my head. I'm seeing it in images, like I'm watching a film in my head while I'm reading the words on a page. And I think that producing silent work with no words in it will give the reader the different experience of it every time, because they might feel a different way to how they were when they read it the first time. And so maybe there's a kind of freshness of thought, along with how the way that I described how I made the image, where I didn't think about it, I just got it down fast. I think that speaks to people. So maybe that's the reason why people like it so much, in that it's work that renews itself with every read.
Yeah, and a silent comic is speaking a universal language.
Yes.
I mean, it's
and easy to sell to foreign rights.
Yeah. Oh dear. So what how many things do you work on? Several projects at once, or do you have ideas for the next project? Or you literally, I know you're working on a project at the moment, but is it all about just that one thing?
I will probably, when I was working on Fondant 4, I saw a documentary about silent films, and I kind of got the seeds for this idea from that. but I didn't start working on it until I'd finished Fondant 4 and gone to Thought Bubble and everything.
I guess you worked on the Avery Hill book and Fondant 4 at the same time. Is that right?
I worked on the first half of Fondant 4 right before I started working on the Avery Hill book. The Avery Hill book took a year. I picked up Fondant again around May, June this year. Yeah.
Okay.
Along with, because people had asked me for work for anthologies while I was working on the Avery Hill book, and I didn't have the time to do them, but I said, I can do something for you when I finished. So actually, the first thing I did after I finished the Avery Hill book was do anthology work. One of them was for Katie Skelly's latest one.
Did you do one for Spread Love Zine? Is that one you worked for?
Oh yes, I've done work for them in the past.
They're nice people. Like them a lot.
Like
I was next to them.
Again.
Yeah.
And then I picked up on Fondant 4 right after that. So yeah, May, June time of this year. Yeah.
Is that a headspace thing? You got to live in it to do it.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
So I presume there's a lot of kind of stuff that may come across. You think of ideas for books and they have to almost be silenced because I can't think about that now because I've got to do this. Do you even get those thoughts if you're that focused in on what you're doing at that time?
It's funny. It's hard to kind of, you know what? I do see things in my life. I think, oh, that'd be a good book. Or come across a person with a sort of life and think, oh, that would be interesting. That would be good. And I'm kind of at the space now where I'd really like to get a graphic novel out at least every 18 months, at least complete one every 18 months, whether it has a publisher to go live at or not.
Yeah.
Because I like doing the work and it feels odd when I don't do the work.
Well, I don't think there's going to be any stopping in people asking you for more of your work.
Have you ever thought about collaborating? That doesn't sound like the sort of thing you would be into somehow. I don't know why.
I did a comic, one of my first comics from like 2010. I only did 2 back then before I gave it up. I gave one to a fellow called Douglas Noble.
Oh, yeah.
And because I'd used half of that old comic to send to someone, I think it was Frankenstein magazine. They used that, so I had the second half of this old comic. I thought, well, what can I do with this? And so I've given it to him to kind of reshape and change. And if he chooses to put words in that, that's fine.
Okay.
So there's that.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's just a different way of collaborating. I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What advice? Well, advice may be the wrong word, but for someone who hasn't experienced the work of the books, and I know we do say you've got to see it for yourself, but for those people who aren't aware of your work, what is the sort of what would you tell them to expect from it? You know,
I'd expect this gets bandied about a lot, but I have so many people tell me how Lynchian my work is.
Yeah, I think Lynchian's almost a easy go-to for you, isn't it?
Yeah, and it also makes me a bit sad that if that's the only word that ever really gets used to describe my work.
I would take it more as people struggling to find
a way to describe it.
Yeah, the right way to describe it, so they go for a shorthand. I mean, but I wouldn't take that as negatively at all.
Yeah.
just that people.
Oh no, not at all.
I mean, the thing is,
and it only applies to Eraserhead for me. I think anything past that is very.
And the use of the word dreamlike, which I use purely because I don't have the vocabulary in my head. I can never. I always think of the word 2 hours after that I should have used, and it's like, oh god, I've used
nightmarish. I think would be the. You know, I knew someone said that earlier, but
nightmarish, kind of erotic body horror. Absurdist in places. Yeah.
Do you ever sort of skip into the satire with it? Do you ever think, this is quite applicable to what's going on at the moment?
It's funny. I think it was which fondant was it? I can't think. There's a lot of war imagery in it, And I think I did that when Russia invaded the Ukraine, because I was freaking out about it, and because anything war really fills me with a lot of dread and anxiety, and it just kind of, because I do them stream of consciousness, but gosh, that was just on my brain, and it just came out onto the page, and and a lot of I do think my work also has a kind of feminist lean to it as well. There's a lot of, like, I've never wanted to have children. There is a lot of like fear of childbirth and stuff in my comics.
Right. Yeah.
I can. Yeah. There's certain panels. As soon as you said that, certain panels popped into my head.
And the fear of disease and
Yeah.
stuff like that as well, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So,
fear of mental illness and things as well.
Yeah.
So
should we bring the conversation back up again?
Yeah. And it sounds like such a silly thing. This is what one of the questions I was going to ask. So we've got the content of like your books and the work and everything. What's one thing that people would not expect brings you joy? I'm not asking you to give away your secret identity, so you can keep it to yourself if you want to keep it secret. What's the thing that you're like, oh, I really like that, and people just wouldn't expect it from seeing your books?
No, I really like the musical Oliver.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. That's usually airs this time of year, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I watched it the other day. It's great.
Is it Oliver Reed? Oliver Reed, isn't it? That one. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. I say you had a good message earlier when you said about the bar for entry for making your own comic book. That I think a lot of people build up in their head as like, oh God, I'll never be able to do that. And it's like, anyone can. There's no bar for entry for making your own comic.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I do find it frustrating when people sort of make it seem like there's some cabal or something locking them out of making it. It's literally you draw your pages and stick them on the photocopier, and then you've got your comic book.
Yeah, it's one of those amazing art forms that anybody with any skill level can do. And it's just, and it's easy and it's cheap, it's affordable. And it's open to anybody.
Yeah.
Which is totally the opposite of what a lot of the art world is.
Trying to make a short film, for example, is, even now.
Did you go and check out anything in the small press scene to sort of see like what the lay of the land was, or were you just like, I'm going to make my own book and go for it?
No, weirdly at the time I don't think I did. I can't remember doing anything. I mean, I can just about remember going to Thought Bubble that first time.
Yeah.
I
did buy some things.
It's certainly your eyes. As soon as you decide to look into like the comics community, your eyes are opened, aren't you? Because it can be such an insular sort of pursuit that you're like, oh, there are other people like me. Oh, there's other people doing work like me, or maybe I'm the only person doing work. My work will stand out because there's no one else doing something like this.
Yeah, it was all very eye-opening. That I mean, I definitely remember writing. Not even sending emails, writing a letter and putting it with a comic because I'd found the address of a comic shop and just asking them if they sold small press, and if so, would you like to sell my comic? Here is a copy for you. And people saying yes. I remember that very early on.
That's great.
Cool. Now you're signing all over the country.
Yeah.
You've done the length of the country, haven't you, signing recently?
I did Gosh in London and OK in Leeds, and I did Nottingham as well. That was nice to go back there because I used to go to Nottingham a lot on weekends when I was a teenager. And
okay.
I'd go to the comic shops there.
Was it page 45 you did there, would you?
No, I did not. I did Forbidden Planet.
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice.
Shush, don't tell anyone. Yeah.
So, before we let you go, just one more thing about the art that I just need to know. What size do you do your pages to?
A3.
A3.
Okay.
And does this mean that you've got a stack of A3 originals?
Yeah.
Somewhere?
Okay.
Wow. And are you an artist who's going to keep hold of those forever? Or...
I've sold a few with a very supportive fellow called Sean Watkins with Athenium Art.
You're with them, are you? Oh, okay.
But right now, because I thought too hard about how I don't have what are my archives? I have the final pages, and that's kind of it, because I don't doodle and stuff. I don't have like sketchbooks and things. So it kind of scared me that once these pages are out there and gone, then that's it. I don't, so, but I would like to sell some from Scrapbook of Life and Death. I'll probably put those on my website, actually. Yeah. But they might be a bit pricey just because I probably now have to actually factor in the amount, because I have trouble. I know what my work is worth, but I have trouble selling it for what it should be sold.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's a common problem.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, certainly that book itself has turned a lot of heads.
Definitely.
So I'm sure.
I hope people have enjoyed it as much.
I had a phone conversation with Ricky and was telling him how much we loved it. Mate, it's so good. It's definitely in my top 10 list this year. Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah,
it's just different. That's the thing. It's not what we're expecting. And you're taking chances, which is what I think I admired most about it.
Totally.
You're not playing it safe. And I think that's a problem, that people are worried and play it too safe sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, comics is supposed to be an area where you can talk about hard stories, difficult things, and it'd be easier for people to communicate events and personal things, and that's true. So I don't think people should hold back.
Agreed.
Yeah. And we are grateful that you're putting this sort of work out, because it's like nothing else, and we can't wait to see all the other stuff.
And we got to see Fondant 4 already, so
Yeah. So which is just, I'm smiling at some of the mentions of like the stuff we've been talking about, and I just have flashbacks to like, that panel. Oh God, that panel. Which is wonderful. So, where can people, if they want to check out more of the work or keep up to date with you, where can they go for that?
Okay, I've just sent out close to 200 comics to a number of comic shops. In America, it'll be Domino Books in Brooklyn, Partners and Son in Philadelphia, Gosh Comics in London, OK Comics in Leeds, Zine Freak in Lancaster.
Buddy.
And seeing how many are left over, I'll put on my website. In the first 100 issues, on the back page is a tiny square of original art that can be about a centimetre square, or you might get lucky with like maybe 2-inch square piece, because I had all this work left over from the Scrapbook of Life and Death, and I cut it all up, and I thought, I'll stick it in the back of the book.
Oh, nice.
Amazing.
Nice.
For the people who buy it.
Nice. Okay.
Nice. And to be honest, I absolutely love that you've name dropped specific shops for people to go to.
Definitely.
Online. That's brilliant. So, head over to those stores and pick up these books, so that other people can go, that's amazing. Where'd you get that from? And then it all feeds back to this show.
What about appearances? You doing any more cons?
No, I kind of think that's kind of it for the UK after. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll have to see what kind of pops up in the spring, I guess.
Yeah, we're the same. Yeah.
You're gonna be guesting at so many shows, Gemma, without a doubt.
That would be very nice.
For any organisers of SPX or TCAF listening.
Yeah. So you you've probably got a million pages to pointalize as we speak. Is that what they call it? What would you call it?
Pointillism.
It's
Pointalize, I guess.
Yeah. Whatever it is, it's far more work than I've ever done in my life. So.
You're stuck now. There's that story, isn't there, about Eddie Campbell when he drew from hell? He said, I wish I'd never started it with this style of cross-hatching.
I mean, I get that thought a lot where I'm doing it and I'm like, oh my God, this is, what are you doing? Why are you doing this?
My son's
style is, that does happen occasionally, that thought, when I just,
Yeah.
Not all the time, just sometimes.
Yeah.
My son's been studying at school, and like he had to do it in oil pastels, and he was on the table, and I'd set this up, boom, 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 boom.
Oh dear. But yes, go and check out Gemma's work, and it's well worth it. And thank you for joining us, Gemma. We hope to catch up with you in the future with the next book that we need help with, because we're trying to wrap our brains around it.
Yeah.
So can't wait for it.
Thank you for having me. It's been
pleasure.
great.
Yeah.
And there you go. What a
That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, what a thought-provoking and fun conversation there.
Yeah.
You know, and I know we said it several times. Yeah, I think you're going to see more of this creator as more people sort of, because
she's the hotness.
I mean, I only recently, for my show, were introduced to the work since
Tony.
Since Tony, yeah, and the Avery Hill guys and stuff. It was definitely one.
Thanks for the little shout out by Avery Hill on their podcast.
Yeah,
about us.
Yeah, thanks, Kat.
Very kind of them.
Listen to that.
Yeah, and speaking of shout outs, gents, look at that smooth, eh?
That's smooth.
Yeah, mate.
What shout outs do we have this week?
I've got quite a few. So Shift It is an all ages comic launching in December with a winter special that raises funds for the Evelina London Children's Hospital. You'll like some of the people in this. You can order it from theshift.store. Our own buddy, one of our best buddies, Mike Feekins, he's got a story in it called Privet Investigations with Lee Milner. And guess what else is in there? Only the Beast Hunting Battle Badges.
Oh, wow.
Steve
Sims.
Fantastic.
About time. Yeah. Love Steve. We haven't heard from Steve for a while, actually.
No.
So, yeah, we're all massive fans of that. We've all got behind us the collection of that one, haven't we?
Which is just beautiful.
Yeah. We're now into the last week, talking to beautiful comics, we're now into the last week of Shah Volume 1, The Shadow One from Pat Mills and Olivier Ledroit. It's just hit, get this, 328% in pledges and shows no time of stopping. I think this is going to be the hotness when it comes out. Awesome. When it starts landing on people's doorsteps. This is one of those Kickstarters where people think, I wish I backed that. Look at that. But absolutely gorgeous, man. I'm so pleased. I finally got my copy of Printopia from Bob Fingerman. I finally got it from Gosh. You can get them there. Watch this space for that. Thanks to everyone who came to the Drink and Draw on Friday. Great company, actually. Really nice one. Wasn't like... was about 20 people at one point. It wasn't like masses of people, but everyone was just really fun. I'm thinking we might try and do a Christmassy.
Yeah, I was about to say there's
ad hoc one.
That time between Christmas and New Year where everyone's sort of lost for a bit. Yeah.
So let's see how we go. Brighton Art Book Fair is next weekend, the 7th to the 8th of December, from 12 till 5 p.m. daily at the Phoenix Art Space in the main gallery in Brighton. Small press publishers, artists, and our buddy Simon Russell's there. It's £2 entry fee, and they've got a concertina bookmaking workshop on it. If I was about, I'd definitely go to that. It looks quite fun.
That sounds great.
There you go. They're my ones, guys.
Nice. Dan, what have you got?
I've got one, but I'm not sure if it's still going to be active by the time you listen to this podcast. It's called Amopatrice. It's got 26 hours to go when we record this, so you might be able to get in on it. Issue 1 and 2, a supernatural horror. Something lurks in the shadows, watching and waiting. Immerse yourself into blood, death, and madness.
Every day.
Yeah, I did that usually when I commute to Croydon, back and forth. We've got the 500 at the Marcus de Cornwallis, Bloomsbury. 25th of the 1st, 25th, 25, 12 noon, 31 Marchmont Street. We've got free entry to come in. We've got a raffle going on, quiz, got tons of stuff.
Go to the pub, go upstairs, and there'll just be a group of lovely people.
Be a great shout.
As you go in the pub, stairs on the right, up the top of the stairs, we're there. I'm wearing one of the T-shirts, which you can get to help raise money for the day, and the rest of the money is going to go to charity for the ACP gear. ACP gear at Redbubble.
ACPgear.redbubble.com.
Go check it out. Loads of T-shirts.
Will probably be over the next week. There'll be like a episode 500 one. Yeah, a 500 one.
Oh, we're going to put the 500 one up.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I got like a green one the other day.
Yeah, as well as one that if you can't make, I mean, we are very lucky to have people from across the world listening to this show. If you want to support the show, there might be some merch that you'll be able to pick up. So if you couldn't make it on the day,
yeah,
get it there.
Yeah.
Dan's got a T-shirt idea for us.
Yeah.
We'll keep that one to ourselves tonight.
Yeah. Yes. And is that all your shout-outs, Dan? You got any more?
Yeah, no, that's it. I kind of don't have too many today.
No. So instead, it's time to recommend some comics to go about your week, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. We know you've got Christmas presents and all of that nonsense to get, but come on, let's be honest. Sometimes when we're shopping for other people, we get ourselves a treat, don't we? We're always like, oh.
Well, as always, tradition for me is to buy myself a trade which I read on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So we mentioned it a couple of shows ago, but if you're looking for that book to take part in that tradition, Junkyard Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong. And it's a little bit Christmassy, isn't it?
It's a little bit Christmassy, yeah.
I was thinking it really ties into the season. There's a real good feel about it. That's a great book to read.
Yeah, just good fun as well. But as for other books to check out, Tony, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so my first one is Grixly by Nate McDonnagh. I think I've mentioned this previously when I was reading it on Instagram as like a webcomic, but it actually is photographs of an actual physical comic. If you go and look at the webcomic stuff, it's by Nate McDonnagh. I bought a few A5 cardstock zines in last week.
Nice,
really nice. I bought issues 62 to 65, but if you look at his store, which is Grixly Comics with an X.storeenvy.com, I think they're up to 68. I think if you don't want a pile of A5 zines, you can also get it in a collection called Long Boxes, which has been brought out, which is quite nice.
All those covers can continue on then from one another.
Not really. No, there's a little theme to some of them, I think. But those two don't they? Yeah, those two do. Yeah. 64 and 63 make a nice little image. Yeah, but 62 is a picture of a werewolf.
Yes.
Yeah. The the Gosh site also available in the shop. They're only £2.50 each.
That's really good.
That's unheard of these days, isn't it? Yeah, massively unheard of. So what is it? It's a autobio comic. It's at its heart, but it's one that is or should be attractive to the Wednesday Warriors amongst us, or the big Comic Mart Massive. In the story, for the most part, Nate's relationships and with comics, his obsession with comics is what it's about. And I say this as a sort of brother addict, and it's got him flipping long boxes. So he's got him going through long boxes. But we also get, so he goes, a lot of it is about, I heard about this shop, I heard about this flea market, I heard about this show, and he goes along and he buys comics. And I think what he does is he's actually, if you read the Comic Journal interview with him, he's supporting his himself by flipping comics on eBay and stuff like that, I think, as well as selling his own. I'm not sure if he has a job beyond that. So we get his interactions in comic shops. And as we all know, having been in many comic shops ourselves, the people in comic shops aren't always the normalist of people. There's a lot of odd bods in comics. More often than not, the people who fucking work in them. You know what I mean? So there's a lot. He'll go in one and somebody will start engaging in conversation, and that person will turn out to be fun, nice, or just downright obsessive or strange. And he'll talk about, I found this issue of Spider-Man. I haven't got the run of this yet, but if I get this one, I can then maybe put it as a run. You know, and he goes through all different ones. He talks a little bit in issue 62 about the effect that the pandemic had on back issues. And we heard a lot about this, didn't we? About back issues became more popular than newer comics for a while. And people were, they saw that people were beginning to see the value in them, not only value, but I'm going to say quality as well of back issues. As we all know, you can go to the comic market and buy 20 comics for £20, or you can go to a comic shop and buy 4 comics for £20.
I'm not sure it was people finding solace in nostalgia.
Yeah, I think so. And also looking for stuff to fill their time, I guess.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were having, in America, they got a check, didn't they? They got this sort of money through to help them through and stuff like that. And I think
on comics.
We're spending on comics, yeah. I genuinely think that's what he says in this as well. He goes in on one a little bit about comic shop. I'm not sure if you've had this experience. The comic shops you go into where they don't price individual individual issues, and you have to work out when you take them to the counter, the bloke prices them up. Yeah. And I've had it where they price them up on the grounds of how much they think you can spend.
Really?
You see what I mean? So
that's fucking naughty, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had that a lot. There's naming no names, but there's a certain little chain in the UK that does that a lot. And you go to the counter and they'll go, "Oh, that'll be 40 quid." And you go, "What?"
What?
You know, it's like that. I've done it before. I've phoned ahead to a comic shop and asked them to dig out stuff for me, and only to discover that they've become a bit more expensive than I expected them to be, according to their website.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a bit of that going on. He perfectly captures, and not in a horrible way, not in a nasty way at all, but he just perfectly captures. There's a couple he does. He compares. There's one instant where he goes in a shop and there's a father and a daughter, and they're going. Dad's going through the comics and chatting to his daughter, and then there's another one where there's a father and son, and just the different kind of relationships between parents and their kids. And like in the second relationship, the kid's trying to say to dad, "Oh, I found this, Dad. What do you think?" And that's no good. It's like that. And being a dad who's taken his kid to numerous comic events. Well, he's been to comic events with you, isn't he? I like to think that I was more encouraging than that, but I worry that I wasn't. Strange, isn't it? Yeah. What do you think, Dan?
Well, yeah, I try and push my son into reading comics. He's more on the manga thing, but even that sort of so.
Yeah. What I came out of it feeling was this is me. This is how sad I am. Occasionally when I'm working, I tend to start work very early in the morning, and I barrel through till about 2 p.m. And sometimes you get a little of a lag, and I'd sometimes take a late lunch. And that energy, that chest bursting energy of work slows up, and so I end up trying to find something that is perhaps not cerebral, organizing files or spell checking stuff and preparing documents and stuff. And there's a load of videos you can find on YouTube of people flicking through long boxes or going through piles of comics.
Oh, really?
I never have the sound on because these people are more often than not just annoying.
Yeah.
But I love to see just cover, and I'm thinking, oh, I've not got that one. Oh, I've not seen that one before. What's that? It's like that. So. Oh, that's worth a lot of money,
Yeah.
And it's a bit like that. It hits that same spot for me, these comics. What it did make me feel is I'm so jealous of America. And I say this mostly because of right this moment in time in London is we're about to lose another comic shop, which leaves in central London, one of the biggest cities in the world, we've got Forbidden Planet and Gosh. And that's God bless Bristol. That's exactly what Bristol's got, and it's not even a quarter the size of London.
Because their Forbidden Planet's reopening.
It's reopening, yeah.
Yeah, Nottingham has got 2 comic shops in it. All these Glasgow has.
You can walk from the 2 comic shops in London as well.
Yeah,
you can walk to one to the other.
There were a 2-minute walk between them. And used to be like almost like a triangle of all these different comic shops and Comic Showcase and Orbital and all these places that you could go to. And all we're left with is, I'm not. I was chatting to Zach. I don't think you'll mind because he used to work in Forbidden Planet, didn't he, Zach? And I was saying, look, it's not really a comic shop. And he said, no, mate, you're right. He says it's just being pushed down and smaller and smaller downstairs. And gosh, is it? I was chatting to Greg yesterday, saying you're about to get a lot busier, aren't you? And he said, what, with Mega City going? I said, yeah. He said, yeah, I'm not sure what's happening. Because he's a nice kid, Greg, and he said, I wonder what's happening to the staff. I feel a bit bad for them. Yeah.
What are you going to go to the wind? I mean, what are they going? Where are you going to get employment?
Yeah. But there's a couple of little bits of hope that I've heard about recently from Mega City. So can't say who, but there's perhaps a little bit of hope from someone who might be sticking his head in the game. But
that'd be awesome.
We'll see. But in America, it'll be like he goes to this one, to this strip mall, to this town centre, to this flea market, to this. You're thinking, oh my god, this is brilliant. He just gets the bus to places, and it's so reminded me when I was a kid of like I'd get the bus to London and then I'd have to walk like 4 miles, to find a comic shop, and I didn't really understand the tube that well, and it's like, oh god.
I mean,
brilliant.
when I was in Chicago, I mean, I didn't have a chance to go to many places, but I just did where comic stores in Chicago. And so many things pinged up. Do you know what I mean? You'd have to travel to get to them, but at least there was loads.
Yeah. There's one bit that made me laugh in this, and it reminded me a little bit of a Comic Mart moment I've had, where he goes in this one shop and there's this sort of big guy, and he's got his hat pulled down over his eyes, and he's just wandering around going, Starfire. So the characters are still out there, thankfully. But that's my first one. It's called I go and find him on Instagram, Grixly, Nate McDonnagh.
Okay.
Really good stuff. Just a lot of love for comics, really.
Yeah.
There you go.
Nice.
That's what we need, what we're all about.
I'm going to jump in with my one this week. I was only going to just try out one issue of this, ended up reading the whole trade, which was Speed Republic, another one from Mad Cave Comics. Considering, like it's becoming ridiculous now how many times I'm sort of mentioning them.
Mine's Man Cave this week.
I end up reading them. Do you know what I mean? But I mean, we sometimes joke, oh, it's their 10-year anniversary. We haven't been aware of them for a long time.
It's like the last couple of years they've been known for me. Yeah.
But this one came from 2022, and this is Speed Republic, written by Ryan K. Lindsay, who we're fans of on the show. Artist Emmanuel Parascandolo, colorist Michelle Monte, letterer Wamet Gill, and there's a whole litany of people that have created the design and everything in this book. Basically, it's if you like cars and car races and those kind of books, this is the kind of I think we need to do an episode about like car books, because we've talked about those sort of like the high octane take on it, and it can be quite difficult to do.
Toth did one.
Who did one?
Alex Toth.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting one. Yeah.
So this one is basically set. This is there's a few things I'm going to talk about with this. In the future, Europe has united under one man, the autocrat. He rules the apocalyptic landscape from corporate monopolies with a vision of unity that is gospel to some but hollow to others. To distract the 99% from their poor and empty lives, they are given the opportunity to compete in the grand race, a marathon street race through Europe where only one driver can make it to the end and win a life of luxury. They do a bit more in the synopsis, as always. It gives away too much, or essentially says nothing. But that's your setup. You know, the classic on the shoulders of Death Race and all of those kind of like. I think when we're looking at car races in comics, they're always like the Death Race or Cannonball Run. There's always that element, isn't it? Especially if you go do an ongoing. I mean, this is 5 issues, but if you go do like several issues of something, it has to be ongoing. So how do you make essentially like a drive, one long drive, sort of captivating for those 5 issues? And Speed Republic does it. It is a colourful, like high octane sort of series. But I remember, forgive me, I remember I spoke a little while ago about, I've forgotten the title of it now, but there was a one where you're driving through time. There was a car race going through time. Do you remember why I spoke about that one where they were trying to outrun dinosaurs at one point, and then they were in like the Wild West, and that was like just full on. This one's got a little bit more of a leisurely pace. It took me a little bit to get used to the pace of it, which is strange when you're talking about a car race book. But it was so clean and clear, and like there wasn't always like lots of detailed backgrounds and things like that. There was an awful lot of cars in this, as there should be, and it took me a little bit of time to get to the rhythm of it. And it's a lot of it's told from 2 characters. There's one I thought it was just going to be one character at first, and they're narrating over it, which is a popular narrative device in comics. The world of the lore of the world is being told through the classic narration boxes. So as the action's happening, he's describing what the world is. And
I like that.
I like that. It's a good sort of narrative way to sort of describe. Right, I'm in this race. I'm just going to try and make it because life is so terrible. That kind of thing. It's not. When you're talking about like post-apocalyptic sort of worlds and stuff, you think grim and gritty art. This one kind of doesn't, and it took me a little while to connect with the art, because the characters, considering like in that synopsis, like, you know, the poor, the people that are hard up, you expect to see that in some of the characters like that are behind the wheels of these cars, and you expect the wheels possibly, you know, the cars themselves to be souped up, you know, Mad Max type things. This isn't that. These are people just taking cars and driving it, and like the people, because of the cleanliness of the art style, they don't really look like they've been really mashed up or beaten up or they're downtrodden. So there was a little disconnect. But what I found with this story as I went on, I was a couple of issues in, and then I realised I connected with the sort of personal story sort of attracted me more in this, because you have this big story about them driving through Europe, and there are gangs. There's these gangs trying to stop them, and some people.
What's this called again, dude? Sorry,
this is Speed Republic. Speed Republic. And there are gangs trying to stop them. There are some people just in it to kill other people. But there's also the main character, his sister, who he hasn't seen for years. He comes across her at some point, and you realise she's almost like an anti-hero within this. So there's a sibling story that as soon as that came into it, there was a connection made for me, which was strange because I thought I'd be brought into this bigger world building, which does sort of the story carries on and that message continues. It doesn't lose sight of that, but I felt like the personal story worked a little bit more for me. There's clearly character designs that, and I think the art's lovely. It just, and another thing, it took me a couple, probably by the end of like the first issue, beginning of the second, I was sort of clicked into, because I was like, that's the expectations we have for stories, isn't it? Because I thought, okay, apocalyptic road race, I'm going to get this. And the book didn't give me that. Yeah, and the book didn't give me that. So it took me a while to get out of my own head and see this book for what it might be. But there's also character designs that clearly the artists love, because you see them on covers and variant covers. There's like a sub character, this female driver, and she's got like a jacket that's like a leather jacket that's got like a British flag on it, which I immediately thought, oh, she must be British, but that's because
Jenny Sparks,
the sort of dumbass I am. But this character is there, and they're in the covers, but they're only sort of a little bit in the story. And what happens to this character just came out of the blue. I did not expect it. It does some narrative surprises in this book. And then, but there are other characters coming. The messaging at the end, it kind of ended a little bit too suddenly. I almost felt like I needed another couple of pages.
Oh, okay.
At the end, but
it's final. Is it?
It's
just
5 issues. That's the thing.
Right,
it was 5 issues, and I just went through it. It becomes an easy read. Loses traction a little in some parts of it, but gains
the flashbacks I'm not feeling, but the rest of it I kind of like. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the flashbacks of him and his sister are actually kind of one of the things that sort of gelled more when you're reading it in context with the story that's going through and how that builds up. That almost worked more for me than the dystopian sort of thing. But no, it's one that completely passed me by, which is strange because I'm a big fan of Lindsay's writing.
Yeah, I've not heard of this. How have I not heard of this?
And I haven't heard of this, and I thought, oh, it's a car race. It's a dystopian cannibal run. Like, what's this about? I did think that even though it's set in a sort of dystopian Europe, the grip on Europe itself is a little loose.
Oh, okay. It doesn't feel like Europe. To be fair, I didn't know it was Europe, and I'm flicking through it, and I thought it was America.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there is kind of a lot of that. But it's, Aaron, you'll breeze through this. It's an easy read. And, I had fun with it. And it did get me thinking, perhaps we need a car show. At some point,
I really need to read Nottingham by them as well. I always see it. Never read it.
Yeah, and there was a lot of if you read the collection of it, there's a intro from the writer of Nottingham.
Oh, is it?
And that's one that, like you say, Tony, that's been on the periphery. That's like, okay, I need to get into that.
Yeah,
I've heard good buzz about that one.
There's a little bit of Fabio Moon about this.
Yeah,
art-wise, a little bit.
Yeah. But yeah, decent stuff. Speed Republic, like you say, it passed me by completely. So if you get a chance, I read it on Global. So if you get a chance, if you get Global, but the collection's out there so get it from wherever you can get collections as well. So yeah, nice little book. You'll be entertained, which is exactly what we want with comics. Dan, what have you got?
I've got a title we've read. We talked about before, but I finished the 4th issue this week, and it was like my turn to pitch on it, and that's Mugshots.
Yes.
Brighton, UK, 2008. The kidnapping of a young woman sets in motion a chain of events that will set con artists, gangsters, killers, and corrupt police on a collision course. In this tale of family trauma, betrayal, murder, and revenge that threatens to bring down the whole city's underworld. By our friend, written by John Thomas, art by Chris Matthews, and
the drink draw.
Tony Lettera. Yeah, good to see John on there. I got to say, the art style for this book. It's very kind of simplistic and pared down, but man, that worked for me so much because
very Darwin Cook, isn't it?
Yeah, knowing the kind of the where it's set and the kind of the British seaside helped me kind of like project onto it so much more. That it wasn't hyper detailed, that it was like the British seaside, but there's enough there for me to kind of get my imagination going and project onto the backgrounds and the roads. God, I feel like I'm there in a way, but the story is kind of classic. Gangster returns home to sort of family that he's left behind, and has to find his cousin. It's not cousin, sorry, niece. His sister's child, and there's various criminal elements moving in, and the gangsters turf down there, and essentially all these kind of plot points come together and collide. It's such a good story. Kind of, I reread it through.
There's a big Get Carter vibe, isn't there?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I didn't want. Yeah, there's a bit Get Carter, but it's different aspect in the fact that he's not trying to. I guess he is trying to solve a mystery, but it's a bit more intertwined than that. It's not just focusing solely on
there's a bit more of the Godfather going on it as well, isn't there? There's sort of the drama about who's taken over which areas and the town and the gangs that are coming in and
So you got like the kind of the traditional kind of British gangster who's kind of been running the area, and then I think it's the Albanians are moving in, and he's kind of like got to treat it with kid gloves, because if he shows his hand too much, they could like move in too quickly, and he knows they're obviously wrong, and they want a lot more than they're known for. So there's loads of characters with different motives, and
they've got nothing to lose, and he's got everything to lose. It's almost that, isn't it? Yeah.
And he's kind of like he's older, isn't he? So he's kind of, even his own men are sort of saying he's a lot more patient than he used to be, and he's kind of softening a little. But in this search for his niece, it takes the main character all over the place, and there's stuff that happens. You're like, oh, I didn't see that coming in, and there's some shocks in the last issue, which were like, ouch.
I've just started reading this series, and
no spoilers. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely love it.
That's pretty much issue 1 there. We talked about. We haven't talked about anything beyond it.
Just absolute banger from start to finish. It's
just solid comics, man. That's what we want.
Just Jordan knows how to write the comics. It's got beginning, middle, and end. It's got ups and downs. It's got highs and lows. It's doing exactly what it should be doing.
It has characters.
Yes,
genuine characters.
And everyone in there's got faults, and they feel like real people. And there's his sister's old man. You think, oh right, I know what he's going to be like, and then he changes, and it's like, oh god, you got so much more respect for the guy and the character. It's really good, really good writing.
I think there's something like, sometimes when you hear about books that have a lot of word of mouth, or like, this is, and sometimes when I read these books and I think these aren't characters, these are templates. Do you know what I mean? When characters don't feel like
they're just the writer.
Yeah. It's like, okay, this is just.
There's the gruff dude. There's the funny person, and
they think they've got to include all these cliches.
So rather than real people with kind of foibles, and they make mistakes.
And that's not to say that every single person that is drawn onto the page needs a backstory and everything like that. But if you're going to follow something, especially a story with some sort of emotional weight, they've got to be layered people, haven't they? They've got to be.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think if you start making your characters without flaws, they're not human.
Yeah.
And they're completely unrelatable.
Lose me straight away. Yeah. They're always right all the time. They're always perfect all the time.
Because what happens? Perfect people don't learn, so therefore nothing gets better if you don't learn. Yeah, and it doesn't. Yeah. So
the worst thing I hate at the moment, which is a current trend, is when somebody tells someone off.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the person telling that other person off is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but you could almost that so much. When does that ever happen?
Yeah, you could change that from them talking to a character to them talking directly at the reader, because that's what that's for, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's them, the writer, preaching at the reader, and who wants to be preached at? No one.
Yeah.
So it's terrible writing, that is.
Yeah, and also like, I think partly when you have those scenes, there's no response to it. There's this sort of like they're taking it.
It came into my mind the other day was that scene where. I think it was Iron Man comics where Tony Stark's laying in the hospital bed and he's got like Hellcat going at him, telling him off, and it's like, what the fuck is this? This is
the thing is, even if like these things that people are writing in have a point, sometimes there's like, oh yeah, if you look at it like this, there's a point, but it's never a discussion. It's never a discussion.
No,
it's
preaching.
Like just someone preaching, So and because it's that. There's less discussion because people are reading it and going, I don't want to fucking read that.
Yeah.
Mate, I gave up reading about 3 Marvel. I read every Marvel book.
You read about 3 Marvel books. You gave up 3 Marvel books, so you've got 264 left on your pull list.
No, I read all my pull lists this week.
Oh, well done.
Yeah. But on the app, I just went, nah, life's too short to read this shit.
Yeah. Is that commonality you find through some of the comics?
Yeah.
Just
the same story over and over again.
Yeah.
The X-Men books are being written for people who I think are maybe 6 years old. They've just made all the X-Men books the most boring, simplistic bullshit. It's awful.
Yeah, but it's strange with the X-Men.
I've never not bought the X-Men.
The thing is, it's got to be exciting, and there's got to be an adventure in it.
Yeah.
And I sometimes we get on the soapboxes to talk about mainstream comic stuff, but if I want an issue one's of a superhero book, I want to open that issue one and be excited. I don't want issue one to be half an issue of people discussing something.
Mate, Exceptional X-Men wasn't even that. It was like somebody going for a nap.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
And a lot of the covers as well. Like there was one because we do our check out our Instagram when we do like our favourite covers of the week and stuff. And sometimes we're screenshotting stuff and just thinking like, what do you think of this? You know, this is terrible and stuff. Like one of the X-Men covers are just two people like pointing fingers at each other and arguing while two of the other cast are just stood there watching them. It's like, what?
Yeah, it doesn't.
Oh, I've got no clue, man, what they want to do with that.
In clothes that are clearly unrealistic.
These titles didn't become super popular because of how they're being written now. I don't understand why they kind of everyone was all about it. There's amazing.
I just feel like they're trying to kill it off at the moment. It's just
it feels like an act of deliberate sabotage, and I don't know why.
We've still got the stories that we're
moaning, but
we've still got the stories that we like.
I want to love some new ones though. You know, that's the thing. You. I try my best. I try my best to give them all a go.
Yeah. There's writers out there and artists who take their arm off to write great X-Men stories.
Yeah. I'm sure Jordan's one of them. Mugshots, Dan, very good recommendation.
Mugshots is good.
Love it.
Yeah. Finish this off, Tony.
Last one is True Tales from the Bar by Brian Kelly. I was put onto this. I think it's Al Henderson who mentioned it on the Slack, and a couple of us jumped on ordering it. It's a series of one-page black and white comics based on the author's time working in a bar as a bartender in a place called Denton in Texas. I featured some of them on last week's Never on Anything, which has also had the worst comic ever that we talked about last week. So it drew a lot of eyeballs, that one.
My favourite book.
People weren't ready.
I reached out to Bryan on Instagram, but I encountered that, you know, they got this all too often now problem of shipping to the UK. And he said, mate, I'd love to ship them to you, but it's going to cost a stupid amount of money. So he said, but they're on Amazon. So I bought it on Kindle in the end. It's it's on Kindle, and I think you can get a physical copy through Amazon as well. Not sure if it's like a print on demand thing. So it's about it's one of those gag strips that relies on repetition. So it's almost always the same view over his shoulder at a customer in the bar. Almost always the same view, but the customers are constantly changing. A couple of times they're people from Reddit. That's quite a funny page. A couple of them are members of staff. But it's that repetition that gives it a baseline and allows him to drop the notes into it. The little bum 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 funny. You know, it's like that in it. I don't know whether you guys have ever worked behind a bar.
No.
Drunk, as we all, I suspect we all probably all know this. Drunk people are the worst, the most annoying people in the world.
Yeah.
There's a drunk dude angrily insisting that someone has stolen his phone. And then the barman points out to him that he's holding it. Have you ever looked for your phone and you realise it's in your hand? Have you ever done that? I've done that.
Same with doing the glasses. You're looking for glasses and they're fucking on your face.
yeah. Well, my favourite thing is wearing my sunglasses on my head and going into a bar and saying, I think I left my sunglasses in here earlier. That's a very annoying joke that I did for a long time. There's the people who engage him in conversation. There's a lot of people who chat to him. One of them is the classic person who starts a sentence with, "Now I'm not a racist, but," the old classic.
Yeah.
Somebody said to them, I hate people who do this, insisting on getting high fives. There used to be a bloke at the comic mart who used to do it, and I used to go, "No, I'm not giving you a high five."
No.
Why would I do that?
You.
Yeah.
Don't know where you've been.
There's someone who said, goes to him, "What are the rules about getting naked in here?"
It's a hard no.
Yeah, a woman telling another customer, "No, you can't bite my neck." Some bloke insisting that in fact he is not drunk and I am actually the son of the governor. It's just nicely told. There's a little bit of the Jaime Hernandez about it, that sort of nice, crisp, black and white, lovely caricatures, but not really off on the caricature journey, a bit more just reality stroke interesting. He can really draw a good face. And when you've got people who are just in it for one panel or two panels or three panels saying things, doing stuff, and you've got to get that immediate sense of character, he does that really well, actually. Yeah, lovely, clean style. Brian Kelly, Brian with a Y, Brian Kelly Draws on Instagram, or briankellydraws.com/shop. You can find his stuff. Thanks, Ralph, for putting me in touch with him. True Tales from the Bar. There you go. That's my second one.
Real
nice. And this has been another true tale from ACP Towers. That was a terrible end to it. But we hope you've enjoyed this week's episode, because we certainly enjoyed recording it. And
we did. Got a bit deep this week, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
And we're just going to go even deeper as the weeks
really deep
on. How deep will we get?
Yeah. How deep is your love?
How deep is your love? Our love for comics is strong, and we want to know that your love for comics is as deep as ours. So if it is, then
stop saying deep.
Why? Why? How? I didn't say it with a deep voice. The word has lost all meaning. You know when you start using a word so many times, it's just lost all meaning.
Yeah.
But what does mean a lot to us is if you get in touch with us in several different ways you can do it. You can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. You can follow us on social media at awesomecomicspod on Instagram, and at the Awesome Pod on X. Dan usually puts up the X. Yeah, there we go. That's just for our benefit. You people can't see it, but just imagine it. Oh, those arms.
Are we doing that at the 500? Look out for that.
Yeah.
Will you?
Yeah.
I might do the over the head one. Look.
We'll get everyone to do it.
Yeah. Wow.
Like in a We Will Rock You kind of.
Wow. It's basically going to be like a Taylor Swift concert, isn't it? There's just going to be like thousands of people just singing along with us.
I don't find her attractive.
Well, that's got nothing to do with it.
It's got everything to do with it. You mentioned her name, so I have to consider it.
What you should also consider is maybe leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts. And
we would love a review.
Yeah.
We'd love one.
Yeah. Helps get the word out about the show, algorithms and all that. You know, the more people that like it, the more people that hear about it, and the more people that hear about it discover loads of books. You know, and all that stuff, and the stuff that we talk about on a weekly basis. And we're also on networks like Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. What networks are we on, Tony?
We're on the network. That is not an LA Fitness barcode. That is a fish barcode.
Wow. As you can tell, there's this works on so many levels, this show.
Have you seen that video? The dude keeps trying to get into places. He's got a fish, right, and he's got a barcode on it. And he keeps trying...
She's going to get into...
Jesus. Oh God. We're really hip. We know all about
all over these socials.
Yeah. Speaking of socials, or the internet, where can people find us, etc.? Tony.
Neverhidanything.com. I'm not on Blue Sky. I lasted for 10 minutes.
That's one sentence.
Yeah.
They're not two separate things. He's just said that.
Fucking hell. I'll be lucky.
Yeah.
10 seconds. It'd be like a fucking marathon.
You can
Pringles.
I'm on Twitter at Vanguard Comic, and you can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com.
Nice one.
I almost lost the patter there.
Yeah, did you just say you like Pringles?
Yeah, he's popped straight away.
Why do I try and talk whenever Tony goes to speak? I try to drink. I almost spit take. Anyway, you can find me on social media at Jester Diablo. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to Gemma for joining us as well.
Thank you, Gemma.
Thank you, Gemma.
Stay tuned for more comics chat and absolute nonsense next week as we aim to entertain with some exciting
big name
guests.
Next week again.
Yeah. So look forward to it, folks, because we're looking forward to it. But until then, we've got to clean up ACP Towers because we need to get the tree in.
All over it.
We got to get the tree in and decorate.
Clean up all the spunk.
And we got to get down.
What?
Dan.
I just tried to throw that hand grenade in there.
Why have you done that?
You're like the Greg Wallace of the ACP.
Yeah. Enough of his buttery biscuit
Greg Wallace
base.
is innocent.
Let's don't.
Yeah, get the old Christmas tree out.
From Dan. Well, you did say your Christmas tree was white.
You got a white Christmas tree,
Tony,
really?
And myself. Yeah. Look, even if he denies it, we're going to say that he's got a white Christmas tree.
I'm telling everyone that.
He said, you You put your Christmas tree up yourself. I was like, no, I'm going to put it in the hallway.
I've used that joke so many times this week.
This is a classic for a reason.
Yeah.
I went in the shop and a bloke said, "Are you going to put this up yourself?" And so I punched him for being a perv.
Oh, God.
I said that to people at work, and one of the girls said, "How many times have you told that this week?" I said, quite a few times.
And you laugh to yourself every time because good humour's good humour. So join us next week for more of it. From Dan, Tony, and myself, have a brilliant week. Read loads of comics. Keep enjoying the comics you're reading. And as always, what should they do, guys?
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.